Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm back here and I'm doing my final prediction for today, and for the season for that matter, which is the NFC, sorry, AFC North. So my order is first place I have the Browns, second place I have the Steelers, third place Ravens, fourth place Bengals. Um, so I think the Ravens got weaker this year. They lost. Uh, they don't have any running backs. They lost. They don't have any wide receivers. And then on defense they lost Judon, Judon, and maybe somebody else. But I just don't think roster wise they're that talented, and I'm not a huge Lamar fan. So I can't take the Ravens to finish first. And then I really like the Steelers. I like their team a lot. I think they're going to have a good offense. I like Ben. I think he's going to have a good year. Um, and they have good defense, but they play a first place schedule. They play the Chiefs. They play the Bills tomorrow. They play a lot of really good teams. And the Browns just have an easier schedule than them. And that's why you know, I'm going with the Browns finishing first. I think the Browns team is maybe a little better than the Steelers. They're pretty much equal, but the Browns have an easier schedule, so I'm going to go with the Browns. Of course, the Browns do play the Chiefs tomorrow, so they'll lose that. I don't know, maybe they could win it, but besides for that, they really have a lot of easy games that they should win. Going over the Browns, obviously, they get back Odell Beckham. They have Jarvis Landry, so great wide receiver duo there. They got Rashard Higgins also, another good wide receiver. Peoples Jones had some receptions. I believe they have Austin Hooper again. Let me take a look. They have Austin Hooper and they have Njoku, so two good tight ends, and then a really good offensive line. They've got Jedrick Wills and Conklin as their tackles. They've got Batiano back and J.C. Tretter as their center. So great offensive line, and then of course Baker Mayfield. I think he's kind of a system quarterback, but he's pretty solid. Top 15. I don't know about top 10. But he's good enough to be a starter. I think he's like Derek Carr, but like a little bit better in terms of like I feel like Derek Carr is the epitome of a guy who is good enough that you don't like draft a QB in the draft, but isn't like bad enough that it's like okay, like we need, but it's like, but is not good enough to the point where it's like, all right, this guy's a top 10 quarterback and is, potential to go to the Pro Bowl and be an All Pro. So he's kind of just right there. But I think I like Baker. I think he's solid. He had a good season last year. I think he's a good quarterback and could definitely go deep in the playoffs and win the division. And then of course they got Chubb and Kareem Hunt as their running back. So really really good offense, and I'm excited to see what they can do. Moving to the defense, they've got probably honestly like maybe one of the most underrated players in the league in Myles Garrett. I mean, Myles Garrett is really underrated. Like he is probably the second best defensive end in the league behind Donald and I guess Watts also. TJ Watt's also better than him, but Myles Garrett is really good, and he doesn't get a lot of credit for it. I feel like great pick by them at number one overall. Um, then they've got Tack McKinley, and I'm done buying into Jadeveon Clowney. I've had it. Every year I go on this podcast and I'm like, well, the Titans, I really like that they got Jadeveon Clowney. I'm done. Clowney isn't very good. He's not going to have much of an impact. So I'm done with the Clowney hype train. He's not very good anymore. They got Malik Jackson, though. He's a decent defensive tackle. So defensive line is all right. Their linebackers are kind of weird. They got Owosu Koromona in the second round, which was a really good steal. But he's not starting. And I don't know any of their starting linebackers besides Taki. They also have Malcolm Smith from that legendary Seahawks defense, but I don't know how good he is. Um, their corners are pretty solid. They have John Johnson, and then Denzel Ward, who's definitely a solidified number one. And then their depth is interesting. They got Grant Delpit, who was in 2020 supposed to be a top 10 pick, and really just had a bad season and fell off and won in the second round. And then Greedy Williams, who's also a projected first round pick from LSU, and got taken in the second round. Neither of those guys have performed very well in the NFL, so hopefully they can take steps this year. And then, so they've got secondary depth. They've also, I mean, their starting safeties are Ronnie Harris Jr. and Greg Newsome. I'm not going to pretend like I know who those guys are. Maybe I've heard of Newsome before, but don't really know who those guys are. Um, but overall, really like this Browns team. Would like to see them get a linebacker or maybe another pass rusher. Their defense is a little weak, but they've got a great offense and a pretty easy schedule, so that's why I'm taking them first. Next up, we've got the Steelers. As I was saying, they replaced Connor with Najee Harris. Great move. They got Big Ben back. I think he's going to have a good season. And they've got Deontay Johnson, Claypool, and Schuster. Great trio of wide receivers there. And Deontay Johnson's supposed to have a good season. I don't think he's very good, but who knows? Maybe he'll do well. They've also got Ebron at the tight end position, who's solid. They did lose some guys on the line, which is something I didn't like. They lost Villanueva, they lost DeCastro, and they may have lost somebody else. But their line now is Dan Moore Jr., Kevin Dotson, Kendrick Green, Trey Turner, Chuma Okorofor. I don't know who any of those guys are besides Trey Turner, who was on the Panthers for a bit. And I don't like the sound of that. Ben needs protection. He's had protection for a while. Ramon Foster's the other guy. I think they lost or maybe retired or something. But not really liking this line too much. Ben's going to need some time to throw, man. And he's not athletic at all. So when he's getting sacked, he's getting sacked. So I think they're going to see a lot of blitzes, and I don't know if this line is very good. Moving to their defense, however, very solid. They've got Wormley, Tuitt, Cameron Hayward, so Cameron Hayward All-Pro, TJ Watt, Devin Bush, Joe Schobert from the Browns, and Alex Highsmith. I can't really remember who. I just can't remember. I'm not in the football mode right now. And then they got Melvin Ingram also as another pass rusher. So good replenishment on defense. They lost Bud Dupree, but honestly, like not too bad of a loss there, really. They kind of refilled it pretty well. And then their secondary is really good. They got Terrell Edmonds, Minka Fitzpatrick, one of the best safeties in the league, Joe Hayden, and Cameron Sutton. So solid group of solid secondary there, and then really good linebackers. So overall good defense. Definitely a wild card contender, could win the division, but like I said, really tough schedule. Don't like the line very much, and their defense is pretty solid. Offense, besides the line, is pretty good. Moving on to the Ravens. Like I was saying about the Ravens, I just don't like their team very much this year. They've got a good line. They got Villanueva and Staley as their tackles, which is really solid. Don't have any running backs at all, and that's really hard when you're pretty much your whole offense is based off of running the ball. So that's going to be tough for Lamar. He's going to have to make more throws, and he's not a great pocket passer in my opinion. So I'm going to have to see that from him. They've got Mark Andrews, who's a solid tight end. I think he's a little overrated. Marquise Brown, who is so overrated. Bad first-round pick. They could have gotten DK Metcalf, A.J. Brown, so many better. I'd probably honestly rather have N'Keal Harry than Marquise Brown. He's just not very good. He has no hands whatsoever and is really small. They got Sammy Watkins. I mean, he's kind of past his prime. And then Duvernay from University of Texas in his second year. So kind of a mediocre group of wide receivers, but a really good offensive line. Lamar, I'm not a big Lamar fan, to be honest. He's just not a great pocket passer, really one-dimensional. And he's not a playoff quarterback. And what I mean by that is the quarterbacks who are good in the playoffs are the ones who can throw on third and long, throw on second and long. Lamar can kind of get away with that in the regular season, I feel like, against some teams. But I think when you watch him against good teams who have good defenses, he kind of gets shut down, particularly passing-wise. He's still really good. He's still a top 10 quarterback. I just like to see more from him, passing wise, because he hasn't convinced me that he's a good passer. Defense wise, they lost some guys for sure. Marcus Peters is injured. Jimmy Smith is questionable right now. Not sure what he's gonna do. They still have Marlon Humphrey, all pro cornerback. Their safeties, I don't recognize Deshaun Elliott and Chuck Clark. Don't really recognize those guys. And then Anthony Everett right now is their second cornerback, but I'm sure he'll get replaced soon. Their linebackers are good. They got Justin Houston, who will be a nice pass rusher as well. Patrick Queen, first rounder from LSU, and Malik Harris. I don't really know who that is. And then their D line, again, losing Judon, that hurts. They still have Brandon Williams at nose tackle. He's really, really, really good. And Calais Campbell. So that's a good pairing. Tyus Bowser, I mean, he's a pretty solid pass rusher. They've also got Pernell McPhee, who's been passed around to almost every team at this point. They do also have LJ Fort on the IR, and he's a pretty good linebacker. So pretty good defense from the Ravens, but they're pretty banged up right now. And I know third place is harsh, but this is probably the best division in football. And I just kind of like their team. Sorry. I don't know what's in my nose. I just like their team the least kind of out of those three juggernauts. So that's just kind of my opinion. And then last but not least, we have the Bengals. So really disagreed with what they did this offseason. I thought they really should have taken Penei Sewell, kind of a layup pick there. We saw what happened with Andrew Luck, right? The Colts never got him an offensive line, and he got the shit beaten out of him. He probably could have been a Hall of Fame quarterback, maybe, I don't know. Had all the tools for it. Then instead he retired because he got like 4 concussions or whatever. And I just hope this doesn't happen with Joe Burrow because he got the shit kicked out of him last year, and you have the chance to take the best O-line prospect in the NFL in the NFL draft, and instead you take a wide receiver when you already have Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins. That to me makes absolutely no sense. And you have Joe Mixon, who's a great running back. So that to me just makes absolutely no sense, and I'd be really frustrated if I was a Bengals fan. You need to protect your quarterback. Your quarterback is your franchise, and Joe Burrow cannot take another year of just getting the absolute living shit beaten out of him. They got Riley Reif as their other tackle. I mean, he's okay. Jonah Williams had a terrible year last year, but he's a really high pick. Quentin Spain, that was a good pickup off the waiver wire when he got cut. So he's a nice guard to have. And then Suafilo was on the Texans. I guess he was okay. But their line's not that great, and I just hope Burrow's okay. I think their offense is going to be pretty decent if Burrow plays well, which I think he will. He's got a lot of weapons, and he's got Joe Mixon, who's a pretty solid linebacker. So, I like the Bengals offense, but besides for the line. And then going to their defense, so they signed Trey Hendrickson. Nice signing there. He was pretty good for the Saints. He's not bad. He'll bring some pass rushing. They got Ogunjobi from the Browns. That was the guy they were missing. And Sam Hubbard had a good season for them. And they got DJ Reader. So that's a pretty solid D-line with Hendrickson, Ogunjobi, Sam Hubbard. And it certainly makes up for losing Carl Lawson. Their linebackers are terrible. Logan Wilson, Jermaine Pratt, and Akeem Davis Gaither. No idea who any of those guys are. Pretty bad. Their safeties are pretty good. They've got Von Bell and Jesse Bates, Wake Forest alumni. Let's go, baby. Wake Forest alum, and he's one of the best safeties in the game for sure. Really underrated because he plays for the Bengals, but really like him. And then their corners, they got Eli Apple, Chidobe Awuzie from the Cowboys, and Trey Waynes. So not great corners, but overall, I mean, this is a fourth-place team. Not a great roster. They've still got a long ways to go. Got to make that defense better. I think they're going to be really bad, and I think they're going to get Cave on in the draft. That's my prediction. I think they're going to get Thibodeau, and then kind of spend some money and try to build this team up. But they have a really kind of poor ownership group that doesn't spend a lot of money. So I don't know. Hopefully the Bengals can get back to being good, but it's going to take a lot for that to happen. Anyways, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you.